Greetings, 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 greetings. My name is Ruben, and I come to talk to you about the origins of the empire, the ancient empire of Ghana. Okay, so we're going to dig down into the roots, way back into the roots of Ghana. And before I start really going into that, I want to look into the name itself, Ghana, and where it comes from. All right, so we're talking about Ghana, G-H-A-N-A. If we take the G-H-N-A, Ghan, right, the roots of that goes way back to Kemet. Yeah, so the Kem sound, which can be kind of changed around into giving a Kam sound, K-H-A-M, Kam, which if you go into the Near East, then you that sound becomes gets an Eastern accent and becomes Ham. If we go down south into Nubia, the Kam sound turns into a Akan sound, K-H-A-N. Yeah, and then if we take that and we go west towards Mali, West Africa, then you get GHAN, G-H-A-N, GHAN, as in Ghana. Yeah, and then we take that and we go down south towards Ivory Coast and Ghana, and it changes from Ghana into Akan. Yeah, so that's the roots of the word Ghana. Really, that's where it comes from. It comes way back from Kemet, so it's referring to, as in biblical statements, it's referring to Ham, or the nation of Ham. Yeah, and the history of the Akan people, you could say in a way, is reminiscent of the Hebrew kind of journey in search of the promised land. Okay, so according to oral tradition of the royal nation of the Akan people, their ancient paternal bloodline originates all the way back to ancient Libya, to the original Berbers. Yeah, so if we look at the original Berbers, where they come, who we're talking about, we're talking about the Berbers being the descendants of the pre-Arab inhabitants of North Africa. Yeah, this is pre-Arab. When we talk about North Africa today, we're talking about basically people of Arab heritage, or mixed Arab heritage in some way or other, or other invaders as well. It's not only Arabs, but also you have the Romans who were there for a while. I think the Babylonians were there for a while, or the Persians, Phoenicians. So there's quite a big variety mix up in North Africa now. But the original people there were the Berbers, who were, in terms of their DNA, they were what would be described as black or sub-Saharan African. Such as you'd find in West Africa, Central Africa, South Africa, etc. Okay, and Libya itself, the word Libya, is basically derived from a ancient Roman description for Africans who they came across during their time. Okay. So these people had migrated into Lower Kemet during the 18th dynasty. That's from between 1549 BCE to 1292 BCE. And this is after the Hyksos had finally been driven out of Kemet by Ahmose the First. So I think it's fair to assume that that the Libyans were was supporting Amos in defeating the Hyksos and driving them out of Kemet. It's also, I would say, fair to assume that there was an acceptance of the Most High Creator as adorned by the Kemet spiritual culture, the Almighty Creator being Yah. Okay. So in their time now, they would witness the heresy of Akhenaten, and also the era of international dominance under Ramesses the Great during the 19th dynasty. Under Ramesses the Great, they would support the use of papyrus to create what you might call a fake history in the Near East, tying them to a historic acknowledgement of the Egyptian spiritual practice of acknowledging, or the Most High, who would be represented through Amun, Amunet, and is identified as being Yah, or Aya, if you prefer that way of pronouncing it. Okay, so as well as kind of witnessing the achievements of Ramesses the Great, they would also bear witness to the rise in power of the high priest of Amun in Upper Kemet towards the end of the 20th dynasty. Yeah, so they would grow into an influential mixed heritage grouping of people that would become known as the Meshwesh, and who would in time mature into a ruling class to become the 22nd dynasty. Yeah, so this wasn't actually the start of Meshwesh rule. It actually started towards the end of the 19th dynasty. Oh, sorry, towards the end of the 21st dynasty, with a ruler called Akan the Elder. He was the first Libyan to rise to the throne, and he was succeeded by Si Amun and Susanes II, who were both married to Asokan's daughter to legitimate their position and their claim to the title of Pharaoh, which they took for themselves. This was a practice that began with them for the first time. The practice of Pharaoh being something that was a kind of a court system, a royal court system, as opposed to being an individual crown monarch. Okay. So the first of these 22nd dynasty rulers was called Shoshenq the First. Yeah, let me just scroll through my notes a little bit. Shoshenq the First had started really service under Susanes II, and he was the commander of the Egyptian army, yeah, and was also the nephew of Asokan the Elder. Alright, so he kind of rose to the throne after Susanes II, and in time he would install his own son as his heir, and also another of his sons as the high priest of Amun in Upper Kemet. Yeah, so he was known for his invasions into Nubia down south, and also into Kemet. Alright, so Shoshenq would also, interestingly enough, get a mention in one of the Bible stories as Shishak, who would invade into Jerusalem after the reign of Solomon, sent by God to raid and loot the temple there after the children of Israel had turned away from Yah. Okay, so the actual historic records relating to Shoshank the First show that his invasion of Canaan was both north and south of where Judah is located, but that the territory itself, the territory of Judah itself, was not part of this invasion. There are suggestions by certain historic scholars in this field that Rehoboam, who was the son of Solomon in the Bible story, paid a tribute to Shoshank. Thus, this incident was seen as a punishment from God rather than a recorded invasion. So they're kind of, in the story, they're referring to the other incidents, but they're painting that in a light and saying that that is what happened there as well. But then they're turning it around and saying that it was a punishment from God, because in fact what it was that it was some kind of treaty agreement. The other kind of alternative reason as to why Judah wasn't kind of mentioned in the historic records, Shoshank's historic records, is that the territory was really insignificant in terms of invading. It was just a kind of maybe just arid fields with a few little village settlements maybe, or something like that. So the relevant branch of the Meshwesh to the Akan would move down into Upper Kemet, upholding and maintaining the spiritual practices of the high priests of Amun independently from their brothers in the north. And this is from around 840 BCE, marking the start of the 23rd dynasty, which is a time when I think Harsius claims independence for Upper Kemet region from Lower Kemet. Their rule in the south would continue for just over 100 years until they eventually gave way to Kushites of the 25th dynasty, who began moving north into Kemet. Okay, so the Kushite movements into the north was led by their king, who was called Kashta, and it was pretty much a peacefully run kind of takeover. The rulers, the Libyan rulers in the south, were pretty much stepped aside and kind of just let them take over. Also, I think Kashta's daughter was installed as what was called God's wife, or what was referred to as God's wife, which was essentially the high priestess of Amun. And his son, in his time after Kashta, would conquer into Lower Kemet, removing the rule up there, which was, I think it was the 22nd dynasty, and who were supported by the Assyrians. So they drove them out, and would eventually lose control in Lower Kemet after friction in the Near East with the Assyrians towards the end of the 25th dynasty. Okay, so having effectively sided with the Kush against Lower Kemet, the 22nd and the 24th dynasty. This newly integrated grouping of people found themselves migrating south from Upper Kemet into the kingdom of Kush in search of refuge, and this is around 660 BCE. And after the Assyrians had retaliated when the Kushites had entered into another campaign into the north and were driven out of Kemet altogether. Okay, so this grouping of people would remain in Kush for the next 1,000 years until conflict between Kush and Aksum, so the decision taken by them to migrate west. Yeah, so we're talking about now conflict between Kush and Aksum. It's now viewed as something that is against the will of Jah, really, or the will of Yah. So they don't want to take sides, they don't want any part in it. Yeah, so the message now is one piece, Imhotep. Yeah, so the decision is taken to move west to the ancient land spoken of in the old stories. Yeah, going way back to the pre-dynastic times and the first few dynasties of Kemet. Alright, so as a result of kind of the growth of the Sahara over the centuries, by this time the Seneca people that had been known to be in the west had themselves migrated further south, and this is over 100 years before the eastern refugees from Kush finally came across them. And we're talking now during the 5th century of the Common Era, CE. And where they found them is what we would call today Mali. Alright, so the leader of the migrants at this time, as legend would have it, is called Dinga. And through royal unions between his people and various princesses scattered throughout the region, he was able to form a great empire. And this empire was to become the ancient empire of Ghana. Over the following centuries, its capital would be a walled city called Kumbi, which is identified in the earliest Arab writings about the region, going back to around 800 CE. In those texts, it is referred to as being a dual city called Kumbi Salah, and Salah being an Arabic word for peace, or if we want to take the old Kemetic word, Hotep. Salah was a city, and I'm taking their word for it because it could be an exaggeration. I think some of the ancient Arab texts could be taken to some extent with a pinch of salt. There can be a little bit of exaggeration here and there, or kind of twisting of the truth to suit how they want, or the way that they want to present the story that they're telling. So whether it was an actual walled city or a town, a large town, or even a small village is uncertain as far as I'm aware. But I think it's recorded, it was a two walled cities, neighbouring walled cities. And like I say, Salah was within close proximity to Kumbi. Salah was a Islamic-centered dwelling, so the people that lived there were free to practice their Islamic religious, in their Islamic religious ways, and this was kind of given protection directly from the royal court in Kumbi. But during the 11th century CE, the royal dynasty of the Kumbi and those loyal to the monarchy migrated further south due to growth in Islamic influence aggression, including slave raids. And this would lead to the emergence of the Mali Empire. The people loyal to the royal dynasty of Kumbi would go south into the region of modern-day Ivory Coast and Ghana, forming what was to become the Akan Empire, which would grow through their trade in gold, and other cash crops. So that would we're talking now 11th century, 1000s, and leading through to more recent times of the Akan people. We forward to the 16th century, I think, 16th, 17th century, 16th century, or the end of the 15th century, when the Spanish and the Portuguese started raiding and on their slave trade and beginning this transatlantic slave trade. Okay, so the roots, certainly for us as Jamaicans, is kind of retold in this episode. So I hope that you've found the information that we've given you today useful, and until such times, one piece, Imhotep. Yeah, so if you like the video and you like what we're dealing with, why don't you come and check us on our Facebook page, AfRaKa Know Yourself.